Yeah, that's going to be exciting. And speaking of our demo team, we've got Ransom versus Kalai in our next matchup. We know Kalai is going to be using the red deck. That's a given.
Yeah,
Ransom
for sure.
using the blue deck. Let's see what happens in
So
this first game.
something about Kalai is that she always, when she always wants to play against me. We always play against each other, and we have a great time. And she does the most amazing moves. So let's see them.
Yeah, very exciting player. So the first thing that I've got here for us,
This is Ransom. He's
this is
blue.
Ransom. He's starting off with a common tactic, trying to go the speedy route here. Flips an arcane card. This should look familiar to Andrew. Flips that witch over with nothing to gain
And
from it. And looking at
he
his
has a
hand,
great hand. Nothing
yeah.
I'd want to give up from that hand.
So unfortunate for Ransom there. It's a good tactic. Doesn't end up working out too well for him.
But he does have 3 cards in his Emberscape. But then Kalai has a card in her collection pile.
Yeah, and those 3 cards in his Emberscape do not last long. We see Kalai has her own witch.
So this was a smart move of Kalai. She had a dark magic in her hand, and as enticing as it is, she didn't play it.
Yeah, I was surprised as you were about that. But I think showing good awareness, she's in this tournament to win it. And then unfortunately, as you saw there, Ransom pulled out his protection martyr, so unfortunately thwarted her there. But it was definitely a good move, and I think she made the right call there.
It was a good move, and I like the way that Ransom kind of got payback, right? He had to give her a free card. Now she has to give him a free card. But he does only get to use that protection martyr once in the game unless he finds some way to get it back into his hand. So probably a good time to use it because he did have 3 cards in his Emberscape, and that would have really tilted the tables if she could have gotten up to 4.
Yeah, and if you were watching his hand, you saw that he had Ambyria, his hero, in his hand. I know if I have my hero and my protection martyr, I like to save it, but sometimes it's good to know when you've got to use it. We do see here when he finally does get Ambyria out there, putting in the last slot of his Emberscape, so only going to get her benefit for 1 turn.
And having Ambyria having Ambyria out is underrated. Like if you can have Ambyria out for 4 turns, I wouldn't want to be the player playing against that. What it means for me as the player playing against that is I don't have my cards and you do, and that means you're gonna win.
Yeah. So, I mean, he does end up using that martyr, so he does safely collect Ambyria. So it is great that he got her into the collection pile. And although it was only on the field for 1 turn, he did get a very useful card from her. And we're going to see that come into play later.
Yeah, I think even 1 turn with Ambyria, you get those cards from your opponent, and you're a little bit ahead, and not to mention you have 20 points in your collection pile.
Yeah, and as we saw earlier, Kalai did have the dark magic. Ransom was going with the fast mode here, trying to run through his arcane cards pretty quickly. Kalai says, I've had enough of this. She plays her dark magic. You never know what's going to happen in dark magic, but you can see things worked out okay for her. She got that seductress, which is going to let her fill up her Emberscape.
And this is what we were talking about before in one of the previous games, that you're weighing that risk versus reward. And I think that she played the risk and reaped the reward right there.
Yeah. So dark magic, you never know, but ends up working out for Kalai. Still an uphill battle for her in that game 1, though. She was still down, needed to get some more points going. And right here is, I think, what really sealed the deal for Ransom. You can see that Ransom's got his 4 cards in his arcane or Emberscape. He had just played an Uncivilized Wretch on Kalai. For those that don't know, that puts your Emberscape cards back into your deck, and then you get 1 fewer back in the Emberscape.
No effects.
Those cards, no effects. And those cards that you get back are random from your deck. And we'll see here in a second what pops out for Kalai, unfortunately. If she gets through the struggle of the simulator.
No. Not the Wraith.
Not the Wraith. Devastating. I could not believe that when I saw that. Once that Wraith came out, I said, this is the end, which turned out to be true. Unfortunately for Kalai, not the best luck there. Ends up going down in game 1.
Yeah. I think she did really well. I don't think that this was because she played poorly. I think that sometimes the as Josh called them, the gods of Ambyria. The Ambyria gods don't favor you on that game, and when something like the Uncivilized Wretch puts a wraith in your Emberscape, you can't plan for that. It just happens sometimes, and that's why we do the 2 out of 3. So it happened
So
twice.
getting into game 2, both players sticking with their color. Kalai loves red, Ransom loves blue. So we're gonna get into game 2. This is one of the most surprising highlights from game 2, I think. Ransom's got a couple of face down cards there. Kalai tries to collect, bold move, but sometimes you gotta go for it. And we see Ransom flip over his trusty Uncivilized Wretch again.
Yeah, so this is something that I never like to do is 5 cards go into attack mode with someone having a face down card. But in this case, it didn't matter. She wasted, she used her martyr, and he got to use that anyway. Now let's see. Well, let's see her crazy shuffle. I want to see what card she flips up here. Like sometimes you can flip up better cards than you shuffled in. So maybe that'll happen for her here.
Yeah, that Uncivilized Wretch, it's you never know what's gonna happen. And then you have that happen.
Again, 2 games in a row.
Yeah, that's when I kind of lost it. You don't expect to get the Wraith even 1 game from that, much less 2. Having to collect your own Wraith is brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could play 50 games against the blue deck and not have that happen once. So 2 games in a row is very rare.
Yeah,
Very
so
unlucky.
very, very unlucky for Kalai there. That does add, an extra factor there. She does collect, but Ransom, again, with that fast mode, he's running through his arcane cards really, really fast. So a strategy we see from a couple of these players here, and it really works.
Yeah. But it's not unbeatable.
Yeah, not unbeatable. But here's where things go from bad to worse for Kalai. Ransom plays a Mysterious Elixir. That's going to bring him down to 1 arcane card, and he got a Sleeping Potion.
It's like, did he choose those arcane cards? Those are such good arcane cards to be flipping. If only Andrew could flip those arcane cards.
Yeah, I'm sure Andrew's really jealous. And him being in hasty mode, that allowed him to collect and end the game. So very fast-paced game here from Ransom and Kalai. Ransom advancing to the next round in just 2 games.
Yeah, that was pretty decisive. And I think we'll see Kalai next year doing some good things.
Oh, absolutely. Never count her out for the future, for sure.
I mean, she's the demo team overlord. She makes the decisions.
And moving on, we've got Katie versus Nancy. This was a very exciting matchup for those that didn't watch. A lot of really great things happened here. In game 1, we had Katie as the red deck and Nancy as the yellow deck.
I actually refed this game. It was very good. A lot of good moves.
Yeah, Nancy here in this highlight, she's the first one who tries to make a power move here. She goes for that Banshee Shriek, and it works out pretty well for her. She gets 2 cards out of Katie's Emberscape.
Yeah, and with the Banshee Shriek, getting multiple cards sometimes seems more valuable than the cards themselves. So now that Katie has only 1 card in her Emberscape, that's pretty devastating.
It is. But then, next we're going to see Katie's response to this move. And if you're wondering, in this clip, Nancy had the Dragon's Wager as well. Yeah. So Nancy filled up her Emberscape, took 2 cards out of Katie's Emberscape. A novice player would be very, very distraught by that. But
in fact, this kind of reminds me of what I was saying, Jim versus Andrew. Like, if I were in Katie's shoes right now, I'd be like, I don't know if I can come back from this.
But you know what Katie does? Katie, very experienced. She plays an expert turn here. That face down card was a spell book, which helped her take the martyr off of her own mode pile, which Nancy had just used to take her out of protection mode. And she's going to put that martyr right back over on Nancy to take Nancy out of protection mode. And that being her face down card, she still had a card to play out of her hand, which was the Mirror of Lost Souls.
And she copied the Banshee Shriek and then took 2 cards from Nancy. So,
Yeah, so giving Nancy a taste of her own medicine, expertly done by Katie there.
and this is just world tournament gameplay right here. Like we don't see this when we go to conventions and show new players how to play. That was an expert move, as Josh said.
Yes. And then a few turns later, Katie decides it is time for Dark Magic. Now, for anyone that watched this, you'll know how long this Dark Magic card was out there and how hard it was for Katie to collect here. So let's talk about this move and then, what happens after that.
So what did she play?
That Ancient Sage.
Okay, and she didn't get to choose to play the Ancient Sage, but now she's going to choose to pick up a card. I personally would pick up the Sleeping Potion.
Yeah, and I believe that is what she picks up. She saves that Sleeping Potion for later. There were actually a few turns where I think maybe she would have benefited from playing it when she didn't, but that's her own strategy to try to save it.
I thought the same, and I think that what she was doing made sense for her. But I think many would have said that on her next turn she should have just played that one.
Yeah, and a lot of things end up going wrong for Katie with that Dark Magic. Again, not being able to choose your cards, sometimes not the best. Nancy gets a few collections, and by the time Katie finally does collect hers, it's really not enough, and Nancy comes out ahead in game one.
Yeah, Nancy did great that game. I was thinking after that game, like maybe we're going to see just Nancy run straight through to the end of round one, and we'll see her in round two. See you there.
Yep, and we see in game two where Katie grabs the green deck, Nancy with the blue deck. We see a couple of things happen in this game. Katie gets things going pretty quickly. She's got a few cards in her Emberscape. She's given Nancy the Wraith early on, but here is where a big power move comes out. Take note of what is in Nancy's hand right now, because it's not going to stay there for long.
Yeah, it's about to happen. I don't want to give it away, but I think that if I had Nancy's hand right now, I'd feel like I would be unstoppable. I'm going to play this, this, and this, and then, I'm going to win. So Katie just took Nancy out of protection mode.
And this is why you can never make those grand plans while you're playing against green. Sometimes they have the Mark of the Warrior and switch hands with you. And Katie gets Nancy's Hero, a bunch of other strong cards.
Both
I think there's
Uncivilized
in there.
Wretches.
Yeah, that was absolutely devastating for Nancy. I can't imagine how she was feeling after that play, and how happy Katie would have been.
You'd think that that's not as bad, like you get your hand taken from me, so what? You get a different hand, so what? I'm going to draw more cards. But it can sometimes be more devastating than seeing your opponent get a huge collection. Your next 3-4 draws are no good, something like that. Maybe your opponent has crummy cards in their hand. Sometimes this can be the most devastating move in Ambyria.
Absolutely. One of the most devastating things. But here's why we definitely can't count Nancy out of this game. She collects in, that Wraith is in there, but she collects, and she's going to use her Arcane card here, which ends up being a Hypnotist.
Hypnotist, also a very powerful card. I would say applicable in more situations. So what is she going to do with it here? She takes the Spotted Mushrooms.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Not only is it a high point card, it's going to force Katie to have to discard one of those good cards she took from Nancy every turn. That was her collection phase. She plays this Sleeping Potion to buy herself another turn. And then she's going to end up playing I believe a Seductress or a Dragon's Wager, one or the other. Either way, she's going to capture a card, filling up her Emberscape in just 2 turns.
Yeah, and also not allowing her opponent to play a single card. That is an amazing move. And again, sometimes when you're playing Ambyria, your arcane cards can make or break your game.
Yeah, so Nancy definitely showing why you can't count her out there. Very impressive feat to fill up your Emberscape that quickly. I know this game stayed neck and neck for a while. Here's what happens when we finally do get Evera coming out into play here. And this is what happens with a lot of heroes. We see a lot of back and forth between them. So remember that Evera, the blue hero, was Nancy's, but Katie took that from her with the Mark of the Warrior earlier. So that's why it's in Katie's Emberscape.
And it looks like it's not going to stay there for long, is it?
No, Nancy utilizing her witch, going to take that right over back to her rightful owner, Evera, starting as Nancy's hero.
That face down witch and then doing the deceptive traitor, it's very good, very powerful. And Nancy's now looking pretty good. It looks like that that Mark of the Warrior didn't cause too much damage having to switch hands. She's got her hero back. She's got 4 cards in her Emberscape, but now it's Katie's turn.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Nancy, Katie does draw a witch. Very, very clutch draw there, and she does have the martyr to back it up. So Evera going right back to Katie.
Yeah. And when these heroes go back and forth like that, it gives you the opportunity to use their ability way more often than you'd get to use normally. So very, very good move to capture Evera back and then just use her ability again.
Yeah, and Nancy is not able to capture Evera back. Katie gets it, helping her win game 2, which brings us into game 3. Very, very exciting matchup so far.
And I would you say that was the turning point in game 2 that we just saw?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was definitely neck and neck, but Katie helping solidify her victory with that hero card, Evera.
All right. Well, we've got 1 game for Nancy, 1 game for Katie. It is hard to win 2 games in a row, especially in this pressure. Big prize on the line. So let's see if Katie can pull off another win to get her to the next round.
So in game 3, Katie is the black deck. Nancy utilizes the white deck. So those are our 2 expansion decks. It's always fun to see them go head to head with each other.
Mm-hmm. Supposed to be the antithesis of each other.
Yes, for sure. And this game starts out pretty evenly. You can see what we've got here. Both Emberscapes halfway full. Both 1 arcane card down. And this is where some
2 lasting effects in play.
Yeah, and this is where things really start to happen. So for those that missed it, Katie put a martyr on herself. She had to do that due to Nancy's Spirit of the Forest card, which prevented her from playing anything higher than her mode card. So great job using that martyr on herself. She used another martyr to get Nancy out of protection mode so she could actually utilize that witch.
And sometimes just drawing all those martyrs gets you to, be able to do these great moves. But let's see.
Now you can see here Nancy not too happy about that. She definitely wants to get those or some of those cards back over to her side of the field. Mm-hmm. But you can see Katie over there in her hands. She's still got another martyr, the protection martyr.
And even so, the Falvier is in play. So if she did play that witch in her hand, she'd have to discard 2 cards in order to play it, as well as giving 1 card to Katie's collection pile. So that Falvier can be very punishing.
It can be, and it creates a barrier of attacking your opponent. I would argue that very often that barrier is worth it. You've got to attack your opponent's Emberscape regardless of the cost. But Katie making that a moot point anyway, using 3 martyrs within the span of 2 turns, all very effectively to gain and then maintain some control over that game.
Yeah, that was an excellent move on Katie's part.
Yes. The middle of that game is very, very back and forth. Lots of capture cards, a lot of pressure. We can see getting to the end here, both players 1 single arcane card left, both 4 cards with their lasting effects again, both a face down card. I can't think of any more of a tense situation to be in an Ambyria game than this.
Yeah. This end game, like you're just crossing your fingers, hoping that your opponent doesn't have the cards to get you, and then this happens.
Yeah, and you can see there, interestingly enough, Nancy's face down card was that Wraith. So you can't really collect that. So you saw it kind of put her in an interesting situation. She played that sleeping potion, but before her collection phase, she had to put that Wraith into Katie's Emberscape. And that presents a challenge for her.
So Katie flips over face down Thief in the Night. This could be effective, but Nancy has 5 cards, and odds are that she has something that she can play into her Emberscape. And more often than you'd expect, Thief in the Night steals Thief in the Night from your opponent's hand, like we just saw.
It's one of those unwritten rules. Like the Ancient Sage is always in your arcane cards.
You always steal a Thief in the Night. Sometimes you'll Dragon's Wager.
But we see Nancy throw out that Jewel of Greed, collects 12 points. She is going to gain that last collection. It's ultimately not enough, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great collection. It looks like it would be enough to propel her to first place.
Yeah, it was a great collection. It brought her relatively close. We had 192 to 150, which is a very close score. It's just the scope of just a couple of cards. So very, very close game 3 and a very exciting matchup that Katie will progress through.
Yeah, great job to Katie. Hats off to her. I'm excited to see her going up against Ransom in the next round. It's going to be a very exciting match.
Yeah, and these two have faced each other long ago. It's been a while, so it'll be interesting to see how their styles have evolved since the last time they met in Ambyria. So very excited for that next round.
I wouldn't underestimate any of these opponents right now. They're going to be bringing their A game for the next round.